And welcome to another great episode of Tampa Fishing Outfitters Live Fishing Report. Myself, Captain Travis Yaeckel, in the studio. Captain Jason Prieto.
What's going on?
And Big Rick is in Georgia. In Georgia. We were talking as the intro was running there. We're going to get a mannequin and put him over here.
Yeah, that's the replacement.
And
one of us
we're
is
going
not
to dress
here.
him up. That's going to be Rodney. Rodney's going to fill in.
Yeah, and
he's the best fisherman on my boat. I know that.
Rodney? Dude, I got two Rodneys right on the front of the boat on this boat.
That's it, man.
And boy, it's been a pretty good week of fishing minus the tarpon. Tarpon's been a chore, man.
It's been tarpon. You know, that's what I tell people. They say, you know, what was this a good day? Was that a bad day? You know, and I just tell them it was tarpon fishing.
I just say it was a better day than what you had when you were at work.
Yeah, I mean, we've hooked several fish, caught some fish. I mean, it's for me it hasn't really, you know, historically for me July is really you know, my favorite month to tarpon fish. July and the first part of August I really enjoy tarpon fishing in the bay. So for me, I don't feel like my good stuff or the stuff that I like to fish has gotten all that good, but there are some fish around. We fished a few tarpon tournaments. We got some fish.
Yeah, you did well on Saturday. You got second place.
We did. We got
with one fish.
With one fish.
That tells you how it is, though.
Yeah, I mean there was.
It's not good.
I want to say there was 24, 25. It wasn't a big tournament. It was 24, 25 boats. Some guys ended up releasing like 5 tarpon that day.
How big were they? Big ones?
Well, in this particular tournament, they had to be at least 40 inches. So they weren't, you know, juveniles. But they had a measuring tape, and they had to be at least 40 inches to register to, you know, be valid for the tournament. But we ended up, we jumped, I think it was 3 fish. We landed 1, but the last fish we jumped and we landed, I mean, we fought this fish for over 2 hours.
It's the one you don't want to hook in a multi-fish tournament.
Exactly, and that's what I told those guys. You know, of course, we had a good time and would take one over none any day. But in that type of situation, we had some fish chewing behind the back of the boat, had just lost a fish, and hooked that fish, and it was a good one. So in a tournament, well, anytime really, but especially in a tournament, you kind of take your time, you know, especially if you've only got one fish. And so
and it paid off.
You get halfway through that fight, you know, and you really start worrying about your leader. You start worrying about your drag, and it can be a brain buster of sorts, you know, especially when that fish is you just can't stop them. This fish kept gulping air, and finally we got we were able to keep the fish's head down and keep him from gulping air, and managed to get on top of her and tighten the drag down real good, and finally got a hold of her. But it was a good fish. Really, what surprised me was as long as we fought the fish, how well she swam off. Because sometimes, you fight them for over a couple hours. I mean, by the time you get them wore down enough where you can get a hold of them.
Yeah, even doing all the techniques and tricks, you're fighting a 150, 180 pound fish with 60-pound tackle.
Well, that's where we were at. Now we had 4 rods set up with 60-pound main and 80-pound leader, and then we had 2 rods with 60-pound main and 50-pound leader.
What'd you get hit on?
The 50, the light stuff. Yeah.
You landed them on 50-pound?
Yeah.
50, wow.
50
you
pound
must have
leader,
had him right in the lip.
Right in the corner, and I'm telling you,
that wouldn't have made it if he got it anywhere where that leader was rubbing.
I told the guys, with the way that the fish, and it was caught on a live bait, with the way that the fish acted, the way that it fought, I would have almost bet anything that the fish was gut hooked.
Yeah.
Because a lot of times when you hook one deep, they sort of fight to the death almost. I mean, they just, for whatever reason, and you get a lot of good jumps out of them. They give you a good show. This fish gave us a good show. Fought a long time, and like I said, because we were on a little bit lighter tackle now, the equipment we were using was right. It was just we had, like I said, 50-pound leader, and so we really were careful. After about that hour mark, I was like, well, listen, we can either tighten this fish up, try to get him in, or we may chew through the leader. And the funny thing is the hook was so perfect, and it was actually right here in the top of the mouth, or on top of the lip, that, I mean, after all that, all the jumps, running it across the channel, everything, pulled it up, I mean, you could have fished it again. It's crazy.
Yeah, it's just perfect hook set.
It just happened to work out.
That's why we use circle hooks, really.
Yeah.
There's some guys using J hooks. I don't know, maybe think you get more hook sets. I can't tell you. I lost a bunch of tarpon to circle hooks over the years, but I
think the benefit to the J is really your gap.
Yeah, the gap, but
and that's something to talk about too, because especially with tarpon fishing, everybody talks a lot about what size gear, what size terminal tackle, what size main line, what size leader, how you rig it. And you hear numbers on hooks get tossed around 5/0, 6/0, 7/0, 3/0. It depends
on the hook brand.
On the hook brand,
kind of like rod brand,
and the style of hook. Because you say a circle hook, and there's several different types now. You've got inline, offset, demon style. The I don't know what they call it, but it's like where it comes down. It's real sharp. It's almost like a real sharp bend.
Yep.
Kind of like the Daiichis that you use.
I use wide gap. 38, I'll give you the number. I use from tarpon all the way to my inshore. I order the same 38-43 wide gap circle.
What size? What aught is that?
For tarpon, if I'm crab
size?
Fishing, I've got some 7s that I use for Goliath today. 7/0's big. That's pretty big.
I gave
you.
That
was like a necklace or something. You gave me the shape of a hook.
Dude, I'm telling you, get one of them in him, he's coming to the boat.
I'll tell you, hooks are not all the same.
No.
As far as quality, and I always tell people with hooks, you don't want to cheap it with tarpon because it's and I broke the good ones, but I broke less of the good ones. The problem, we've talked about this on the air before with tarpon, is if you're fishing crabs, you have to go with a thinner wire hook because you got to get the hook through the shell
without
breaking
destroying
the shell.
the crab.
You're using a crab that big,
right?
I don't know if you can see. So a 5/0 Daiichi to me is a great, perfect size. The strength is good. Live bait, I typically use a 5 just because I'm lazy and that's what I have tied on and it's worked. But I'm going to start going with the cut to the 7/0 and the 6 just because it's got a wider gap because it's a bigger hook, so it helps a little bit on the hook set. But anywhere from a 5 to 7, you just got to kind of use on Daiichi, but it could be totally different on an owner.
Yeah, and the reason I bring it up is because historically I'm a Mustad guy. I used to use owner a lot, and then I started moving in. I used a lot of the Mustad hooks, the inline circle hook, octopus circle. They make a 1X, a 2X, and a 3X. That's the diameter or the gauge of the metal, so they're thicker. But I've been using. I just took an order in of VMC hooks, and been really
VMC. Never heard of them.
VMC hooks. Been around in the game for a while, but been real happy with those hooks. Real happy. I've got them all the way from number 2s all the way up to I think it's 9/0. Good friend of mine and client got me hooked up with that. But I say that because people ask me. I did a seminar a few weeks ago, and what size hook and this and that, and you really have to gauge it by what you're fishing. Your bait. I've pulled out my hook box sometimes, and people are like, "Holy, smokes, man! Like, why do you have so many different sizes?" I said, "Well, I'm sort of picky, A, and B. Sometimes that little bitty difference does, make a difference, especially live bait, especially tarpon, especially crabs. And so, if I'm using some bigger blue crabs, I'm gonna go to a little bit bigger hook. For me, personally, with tarpon fishing or big game fishing, I want to get the biggest hook that I can possibly get away with the biggest gap for the bait that I'm using. You know what I mean? Especially in a tarpon because, they've got a really wide and thick, clipper and jawbone, mouth structure that you've got to get through. And sometimes with a smaller hook, you just won't be able to get it done, Even these smaller circle hooks, a lot of times when you do get a really good setup, you're not, through the big meat. You're right on the top of the lip, of the tarpon. And so, like you said, when I go to cut bait and stuff, I go with the biggest hook I can get away with. A lot of times I'm fishing a 7, 8, sometimes even a 9/0 circle hook, depending on where I'm at and what bait I'm using. But getting down to the crabs in this VMC, I was actually using some 4/0s the other day out at the pass. And we hooked a fish, and, we didn't break a hook or anything. We ended up, breaking the fish off. But I was really surprised because for such a small hook, they have a really wide gap. And particularly in tarpon, the wider the gap, the better odds you'd have at getting a hook set on a tarpon. I truly believe that, as opposed to a snook or something like that, where, there's the way that the circle hook is designed. When the tension is pulled off the hook, it's designed to catch and go in the corner of the mouth.
Right.
Tarpon, a lot of times, the second they feel any sort of pressure, they'll normally make a long run or they'll jump. And so you've got a lot of times you get a limited amount of time to get that hook in, and then you better hope it's set good, because 5 seconds after you lay the wood to him, the party's about to happen.
You hear us talk a lot about a lot of stuff with tarpon. Basically, guys, tarpon is advanced fishing. So if you're not an advanced fisherman, it's going to be tough to land one. It's tough to land one with all the right circumstances. So, if you do tarpon fishing, don't expect that it's going to happen fast. You need to set yourself up for reality. Reality is you're going to be 4 hours sometimes not catching anything. You're going to have to work at it. You have to want to tarpon fish. Because doing trips this year, it's been tough for me with tarpon. I get people that roll out there, and we're 2 hours into it, and they're like, man, can we do something else? I'm like,
it's what you signed up for.
We put all our eggs in this basket. I've ran 20 miles one way, and now you're bored with it. I think people need to realize what tarpon fishing is. You are trophy hunting. You're going for that trophy. You're not snook fishing. Yeah. I can roll up and snook fish and catch 20 snook pretty easy on any given summer day, and so can you and Rick and everybody else. But it's just a different type of fishing, and you have to want to do that. It takes a certain clientele for tarpon. But I can tell you that, like Manuel said, the adrenaline rush when you hook one, you will get a run like no other.
Oh, you pulled it on us today. We were the guys I had on the boat yesterday. We had done trout in the morning. We did mackerel in the afternoon. And I said, hey guys, let's slide in. I got a little spot that I know where some fish are. Let's slide in and see if they're happy. Maybe we'll see if we can, fly a tarpon or two. And of course, those are the days you pull in there and everything's right. We got tarpon rolling, and we get set up, put a couple baits out, kind of put them some live baits out, put a couple, cut baits out, and instantly started getting cut baits. You know, we caught a couple sharks and a few tarpon were rolling. I said, all right, guys, so let's go ahead and I just had that feeling, man, like the hair on the back of my neck was standing up. And I'm like, we're about to get bit. It's about to happen. So I had them reeling the live baits. And, I mean, literally
confidence.
in the next few minutes, I mean, when you got them rolling in your slick, you know, and you're the only boat around.
I had that Friday.
Well, I had a good feeling.
Yeah.
You know. So anyhow, and luckily it
worked.
But
when it's like that.
But so I said,
listen, some of that. I want some of that potion, man. You gotta.
So these guys are sitting there, you know, and I made them put the rods they had in their hand down, and so now they're just kind of
customers in timeout.
Yeah. So they're just kind of sitting there, you know, like I'm trying to explain to them what's going to happen in the next few minutes if what I think is about to go down goes down. And you can never explain it. If nobody's ever experienced a tarpon eat or a tarpon run, and about 5 minutes later, man, sure enough, one bow's over. I pull out a rod holder, and instantly, as I'm pulling the rod out of the rod holder, the fish just goes to town, man. You know, 3 or 4 jumps, catwalking, and I turn back and I look, and the guy, like, deer in the headlights. Like,
what do I do?
Yeah, nobody wants it. It's like, do you want it? Do I want it? No. We've been catching mackerel and trout.
Well, the bad thing about...
Here's a 150-pound tarpon just did a backflip. You know, this one was about 50 yards behind the boat, and then we lost that one. We broke it off. He actually didn't bow to the fish. So we spun back around, got set back up, and 15 minutes later, I'm dropping a bait back. And literally, fish took it out of my hand, you know. Close bail. As soon as I come tight, you know, another backflip. I turn around, it's the same situation. It's like,
not me.
But
you know,
it was good stuff though. So this morning they were all fired up. Yeah, we got 2 bites.
Yeah. Well, and that's what you have to understand too about tarpon fishing. It's boring until chaos comes. And tarpon, one thing I know about tarpon is it's on or it's off. Like, they shut on and off, like literally turn a light switch on and off. So you have to just grind through that until you hit that spot. And it's tough, and some days you never hit it. I mean, there's, you know, I've had a horrible tarpon season for me. If they're under 30 pounds, I've done great.
what I've noticed, and I think you'll agree, and we're probably somewhat similar, but probably more different. But I think there's several different styles and types of tarpon fishermen.
Yeah.
There's the guy that, you know, has all his spots, has it dialed in to where he feels that tide, that situation, and there's a time that he's going to stay there and wait for that. And you'll watch it, especially the beach guys, because, I mean, it's this spot to that spot to this spot to that spot. You know, I'm more of kind of like, if there's a few fish around, I'll sort of fish them. Like, I'll make, you know, small incremental moves. But there's the run and gun type fisherman, and I think there's the guy that sort of,
plans
you know,
it out.
Not necessarily plans it out, but
sits back and
puts the time, not necessarily puts the time into it, but into that spot or to that area or that, you know, those types of fish.
That's probably your plus.
And
you're
so
a dissect type of guy.
You know, that is the one thing that I'll say that I like about the bait fishing is I've got options. You know, if the tide's not running right, if I'm not feeling it, if the fish aren't there,
catch stuff.
I can go do something, knowing that the fish are either going to be
you roll
there
to the beach, dude,
or, you know,
you're
whatever.
When you roll out there, that's what you're doing, because there's not a lot of options real close. At least for me, there's not. I mean, if you fish Bradenton, then it's a little different. Like, you fish out Anna Maria, you got options. I don't know Anna Maria that well, so, and I'm running from the other side or in the bay, so when I go out there, I'm kind of all in.
Yeah.
And that's the way I'd approach it on the beach. Now, inside the bay's nice. There's not as many groups of fish, but you have options. Like today, you caught sharks.
Mm-hmm.
We jumped I don't know, about a 40-pounder yesterday, just dumb luck. But, you know, same spot we're catching snook.
We had that black tip we hooked, man. He did about 4 jumps, man, that were gnarly.
The funny thing is you're holding the rod and none of them are like getting up. I'm like, I guess he's gonna catch the fish.
I'm sitting there just letting it eat, man.
But you know, that's just
that's what I enjoy about it, though.
You have to you know, I'm a patient fisherman, but I'm not that patient. You are that patient. Somehow or another, you pump yourself up to tell yourself it's going to get good. I'm about 4 hours into it, I'm going, man, this is a train wreck, and I just got to go do something else. I try to read my customers too. When I look at them and I feel like they're not having a good time,
And that's, that
nothing else matters because it's their trip. At
right.
the same time, when you say you want to go tarpon fishing, I'm planning to go tarpon fishing. So,
well, and that's where you look at it, and there's certain days where you have to, backseat your expectations and say, look, as much as I want to go out there and catch a tarpon today, it's not going to happen.
Yeah.
They could roll by the boat. You could have everything right, and if they're not feeling it, it doesn't matter. I've caught plenty of tarpon. You've caught plenty of tarpon. It's not for me anyway. I mean, I enjoy doing it because we don't get the opportunity to do it that way every day, all year round. But, like today, my guys, after what we did yesterday, knowing that they had another day coming in, I mean, they told me yesterday afternoon, they said, look, we're getting back on your boat. We want to go catch one of those things, And so that was nice where you sort of, you got to do it both ways. Like, they had already had the experience.
This is what you're asking
They weren't
for.
expecting the experience, but they got it. And so today, they were expecting the experience. And unfortunately, we did hook a fish, but, we didn't land one. But we caught plenty of sharks. We ended up doing some grouper fishing, caught some groupers.
There's a lot of options in the bay.
So there was some options there. And there was a storm today that rolled across St. Pete. We got set up and had some fish rolling, real close to the boat. And things looked real good, real similar to the days prior to.
Well, it's about the same time,
all of a sudden, I look up, man, and it's cracking over St. Pete. And I went, dadgummit. I mean, it come right to where we were fishing and, sort of shut the fish down. So it wasn't necessarily on us or anything we did. It was just, the X factor, as we say. So,
yeah. Well, I tell you what. Let's take a little break, Travis. I think we're up against the break here, guys. When we get back, we did a little bit of Goliath grouper. I've kind of found a little love into doing that. When we get back from this break, we want to talk a little bit of Goliath grouper fishing and basically tactics and techniques, and we'll talk a little bit about some other things. You're listening to Tampa Fishing Outfitters Fishing Report live on Facebook. And welcome back. Tampa Fishing Outfitters Fishing Report live. We are in the studio. We are the shop. We are here
in the house.
Capt, Rick, your seat's here, buddy.
Incognito.
We even left your cut extension cord and your drink for you. It'll be a little flat next week.
Guys,
we're talking fishing. With first section of the show, we were talking tarpon fishing. Ernie, we are doing all the above. On the beach, I do a lot of floats, a lot of free lines. Sometimes you have some split shots. That's basically what you do out there. In the bay, it's totally different. Similar, but totally different because you don't have mainly because you don't have the tide flow. If you're fishing the passes,
it's a totally different area, and a different style of fishing. You get out in the pass, and you're going to see a lot of drift fishing. You're going to see a lot of guys on their trolling motors. Especially when you get into those passes.
See a lot of guys too.
You want to get in that drift. You want to follow the drift. We fished a hilltide tarpon tournament, last weekend, and we ended up hooking a fish in the pass, and we got the fish with some weight. There was a lot of guys, free lining and drifting crabs, and I had a small split shot to ours, and about halfway through the drift, we hooked up. Captain Robert Little hooked up just in front of me, so it was a little pot of fish that came up, and we fought the fish, all the way up the pass, dude, through the whole pack, ran straight up through the pack of boats, and ended up getting, believe it or not, broke off on the bottom out there.
Yeah, the bottom
in Southwest.
Southwest is shallow and it's rugged.
We fought the fish for a long time. We pushed it through. Got one jump, and that was it. But it depends, and I say that because, like you say, the pass, this and that. sometimes we throw a cork out there. Sometimes you throw a free line. Sometimes you throw, put a little bit of a weight on there just to get it down. Always read the fish. The fish, if there's fish on the surface and they're feeding, then you want to keep a bait close to the surface. If you know there's a few fish around, one rolls here, one rolls there, then a lot of times I'm fishing mid to bottom. That's just how I roll. And then as far as weight goes, I'm the kind of person where I'm not grouper fishing. I don't need it, straight under the boat. You're not right there tight on the line. So for me, I want just enough weight to keep whatever size bait I'm using close or on the bottom.
Yeah.
It's not a matter of, grouper fishing, where you're setting this big old 2-ounce lead on the bottom, because you got to be careful tarpon fishing with lead and weight, because as soon as you hook that fish, now you've got, this big lead slinging around.
This is why they've, the big thing of the breakaway jigs in Boca,
Right.
That's why they have the breakaway jigs, or outlawed them now, is for that, because you don't want a 6-ounce jig slinging around off a tarpon when they jump. And they are going to jump. I don't know if a tarpon has never not jump on it. I mean, that's what they do. So, yeah, it's tarpon fishing's. It's the last 5 years. I think we're just in a as far as the beach stuff, which is what's going off right now, or so to speak, going off. We're on a bad trend to catch fish. We got more anglers and less fish, in my opinion. And that's, when you have crowded areas, the fish are going to move around. I think the whole cut bait thing is getting played out on the beaches. It's not as effective. It does work, but it just doesn't work like it used to. I mean, we had 25 boats running that tournament for the Lemke. I think at 5 o'clock, 2 boats had posted fish. And the guys that I fished with that day, they fished with they go down to Boca and they fish with Jamie Goodwin and Bobby and them guys. They're real nice guys, but they tarpon fish. Like, they get it. And, he told us about midway through the trip, we had the pack in back of us, and everything was going. We just didn't get bit. And they have fished this tournament for years. The weather was crap last year.
Mm-hmm.
And they fished with multiple different captains, good ones, and just hadn't done good. They fished in the Keys.
So how'd they get a bad one this time?
Huh? Me? I don't know, man. They pulled the short straw. But, my point being is these guys we were talking, and they're like, yeah, I mean, we fish from the Keys to Boca to here. These guys fish a lot of a lot of tarpon. They're like, it's always the same deal, just a grind. They're like, we've never rolled out there. I rolled out there and stuck some fish, but it ain't. Yeah, I mean, it ain't been lately for me. I can tell you that. But
I think that the difference with, and I don't interrupt you, but and I know where you're kind of going with it, but there's a big difference between Boca Grande Pass and, say, Bean Point, Southwest, and Egmont. I mean, it's the amount of real estate, it's the amount of, area, it's the depth. I feel like, and you and I were talking about it, kind of getting into this tournament. When those fish came out, they, historically, when a school of tarpon, just like any other fish, when they're moving, and especially if they're hungry and they're looking for something to eat, and you're feeding them some chum or feeding them something, they stick around for a minute. They'll sort of stop, or at least if the whole pack doesn't stop, a few of them will shut off. And
I've literally seen them on the beach. That's what's cool about the beach. You can see the fish underwater. That is the cool thing.
Right. I mean, and it's just with the amount of people that are out there, the traffic,
it's pressure,
and I think that those fish just don't stop like they used to, and settle in and feed, because a lot of times when a pack of fish comes in that pass, they don't last a minute before something or somebody's trying to run them over or catch them.
Think about Tarpon Key. There's a school of redfish up there.
Oh yeah.
And you think about 15 years ago, 20 years ago, and you think about in the last 5 years.
Fish the cow and the calf all the time.
But you think about, what I'm getting at is think about the last 5 years.
Oh yeah.
And if there is a school up there, how hard it is to get them to eat. And it's the same thing. You have all these guys that know the redfish are there, guides, average guys out there fishing, and it's pressure. And the fish don't leave the area for whatever reason, but they just don't bite like they used to. Because if you do something wrong and you get hooked day after day after day and there's boats running over you and pushing you around, it's going to freak you out a little bit if you're a fish. And I think that's what's happening with the tarpon out there. There's just a lot of boats. I mean, last year there was like 40 boats out there, and We were out there in the past Friday. I don't know if I seen a boat hooked up. I don't think I seen one in the first half of the day.
Where we were at, I saw excuse me, I saw 2 fish fly where we had originally set up. Then you moved
On the outgoing or incoming?
And that tide turned. As soon as that tide turned, them fish chewed a little bit and came out. And that's why we waited on the inside and tried to stop some fish. We got set up, and some fish started pouring out. And unfortunately, we didn't hook up, but 2 boats behind us did.
Yeah.
But it was, normally you get a period where, the fish are coming through, the fish are wanting to feed, you're on a hill tide, that magic button fires off, and they want to eat, And for me, fishing those pods of fish like that, it is frustrating, it is difficult, and I do feel like that the more boats that are around, it does make it a little more difficult to get that hookup. I feel like the fish do feel the pressure,
Yeah.
and sometimes it can be more a game of luck than a game of skill or where you're at or what you're doing.
You can only throw so much
it's
stuff
a matter
at 'em,
of being in the right place at the right time, having the right crab out of the 4 billion that are flushing out.
Yeah.
Look at the what you got going on there. You got 40 boats, 2 billion crabs, and you're one crab sitting on your one boat floating out there hoping to get that
Here's
one
the good thing about what we're saying about people being out there fishing. Good thing is people are out there and they're fishing.
Absolutely.
It makes our sport as a whole that much better. I mean, there's people out in the water. There's people that love fishing, women, old, young, the next generation. Guys are out there getting out there, getting into fishing at a young age. This sport is so much bigger than I ever thought it would be 15 years ago. What is it from? I don't know. Shows like this, TV shows, social media. It's good. But with the good comes bad, and the bad is, it's sometimes we got so much pressure on fish that we just don't catch them like we used to, and that just comes with pressure. So, but Ernie, you're right. It's about making memories, and I will tell you that finding your own fish, there's a reward that goes in. I've said that on the show before, whether it's snook, redfish, getting on a school reds and catching them with, even if there's 10 other boats there, it's cool. You catch fish, that's nice. But finding that school by yourself and not getting all the confrontation that goes with the groups.
That's my MO. I mean,
and,
that's
yeah, and I
especially
trust
tarpon.
the only time that I've fished crowds in the last 4 or 5 years, for the most part, has been tarpon. And I'm getting to the point now where I just don't want to do it. We go out to the markers today or yesterday. It took everything I had to stay there, only because I knew you were at the other one, and I had ran 5. The 3 days before that, I ran to 6 towers to try to find it, and I had to go to the flats. And the one that I was originally at, I should just stay got enough. So, but finding fish on your own, working it, understanding, put some of this knowledge that we give you on this show and TV shows, it'll make you a better fisherman. It really will. Crowds are going to be there. Fishing without a crowd, once you figure them out, it's going to take more work, but it's so much more rewarding. And I found out over the years of, my 15 years of guiding, that customers, even though you're catching big fish, some like it, some don't like it. They don't like the stress of,
It's intense. I mean, even and this sort of show has turned into tarpon, I guess, just conversation. But a lot of people don't realize what you're getting into.
Right.
They don't realize what is about to happen. That's what I was kind of talking about a little bit earlier in the show. Was, you try to prep them. You go, listen, guys, when this is all monotony right now. Nothing's going on. We're all sitting here looking at each other. But in a matter of seconds, I'm going to be running to the front of the boat. We're going to be either untying an anchor. I'm going to be flipping flipping the trolling motor around, getting you on the front of the boat, reeling all the lines in, and for somebody that's inexperienced or that hasn't went through that, a lot of times, that's the hardest part. Count me, or, correct me if I'm wrong, but you're tarpon fishing on a charter. You got 2 or 3 guys fishing. One guy hooks up. You never really feel good until your guy hooked up's on the bow. He's set up. The fish is tight. He's real close to the front of the boat.
Made a couple jumps.
And made a jump or two, and you're riding the fish
Yeah.
now. Now we're tarpon, fishing. We're fighting a fish, because that, period that goes between the fish getting hooked or the fish, biting, and you getting hooked up to it actually fighting it, that's the worst part or the hardest part to get through sometimes.
I've stole a line
getting
from
through the bridge, or whether it's getting out of the pack of boats, or yesterday we were fishing, and there was a guy. He was in like a 17-foot Key West Bimini top, AC/DC blaring, day off of work, drinking Coors Light, shrimp.
Sounds like a guy from Ruskin.
Shrimp bucket hanging over the side, just having a good old time.
Put it in his boat?
He was catching some Spanish mackerel, and he had no clue. I'm sure he didn't see the tarpon rolling or whatever, but we hooked this fish, man. Of course, it goes 900 miles an hour. We spin around, and about that time, man, here comes this big old fish, dude. I mean, it's 20 feet off the side of his boat, man. Boom! You see him jump back, and he's like, he didn't know what to do, and so he's like, "What do you want me to do? What do you want me to do?" I said, "Man, just stay there. You're good." And we broke the fish off about 2 or 3 minutes later, but he got to see a tarpon jump, and we idled back by him to get back. I was actually anchored up, so I went back to get on my buoy ball.
Dude, how you gonna interrupt his AC/DC?
No, he's like, "What the heck was that, dude?" He's like, "What did you have?" And I was like, "Oh, it was a tarpon, man." He goes, "Is that what those things are that keep coming up on top of the water?" I said, "Yeah, those are tarpon." He goes, "Oh, I had no idea." So no clue that he was, what he had going on.
He's like, "Man, this beer's good stuff."
Yeah,
Am I seeing stuff?
No idea. Catching Spanish mackerel, man, getting with it.
Well, I tell you, Travis, we're gonna get off the tarpon subject. I've grown a little liking this year to Goliath grouper. I've always something I.
Oh God, how many? One. That's all it took.
No, I've hooked like 5 in the last 2 days.
Oh yeah.
And we got one to the boat last week. Just dumb luck fishing. I knew there's some out there. You hooked a couple last year, and so I've really actually started throwing some big baits out. Whole fish, and I tell you what, it's pretty fun, and you're mixing it in. The only bad thing is they're ruining my snapper fishing because
they will tear them up. Bubba.
Oh my God, you get them chummed up and not having. But I've been doing a lot of Goliath, not a lot, but mixing it in with trips. For Goliath grouper, and it's been fun, especially with the way tarpon fish has been. I'm just kind of frustrated with it, and I got tarpon trips this weekend, but I think I'm going to stay in the bay. And the good thing about mixing it up is it's easy to mix it up in the bay. So, but man, we hooked a couple. We had a 2-day deal, which you did, and yesterday we hooked a couple on dumb luck. We hooked a keeper snapper, and he got eaten. And so we took another keeper snapper and decided to flip them down, and I actually got to see this thing that we hooked.
That's the cool part.
And he was about the back sides of the back deck of my boat, and I told these guys, I said, "Guys, I'm rigging up the biggest stuff I got at home. We're gonna lock the drags down," and did it today, and we had a better chance, but he still ate our lunch. But
the funny thing about catching Goliaths like that, like I would say shallow water or
we were at 15, about 18 foot of water.
Right, but I mean or wreck grouper. What I mean is like a grouper or a Goliath that you can go target, like that spot, and it's sort of exclusive. Like if you go to say like the Boca Grande bumpers or something like, or you go to an offshore wreck. Where I'm going with it is like if you catch him in the next couple of days, you're gonna find all your rigs.
Yeah. Oh, he's got piercings all over.
Yeah, that's the one funny thing. And
well, you owe it more than one.
If you crank him up, you owe it to him to get it all out. You got to get it all out.
Well, I tell you, the what was cool is I thought, man, is this the same fish? And I knew it wasn't because yesterday I was using my BG 4000s, which is not the right reel, but that's kind of like I use them for grouper in the bay. I got 60-pound tests. They got like 20 pounds of drag on them, and they're good for grouper fishing because they're somewhat light. But so we dropped them down, and I mean I freaking cranked the drag down. And we had one that we had like there was light at the end of the tunnel. Like he made his first run, and we survived it. And then I kept telling the guys like, listen, when he stops running, you need to just get as much as you can. Yeah. And he just kind of, he was like this, sat there. So today we come out with the, I had the Hyperspeed Saltus, which is like, I think they're 37 or 35 pound drag, 7-to-1 gear ratio. and we had 80-pound braid on there, I think, and so we and William, I thought about doing the 2-on-1 deal. I did think about that today.
So one guy
Two
falls
rods.
asleep and the other guy.
Yeah, I know, right? But anyways, yesterday we had a double hookup. So either he ate both the same one, or there's more than one. There's a few. I think there's 3 or 4 because
I found out a couple years ago that I don't know if it's in June as well, but definitely in July, get grouper spawn.
Okay,
now
that makes
don't
sense.
know. I don't know if.
And with the full moon we got coming up,
I don't know if they spawn in our bay. They may.
Yeah.
I really don't know.
I don't
know
either.
what kind of depth they need to spawn, but I do know that in July they spawn because we'll do offshore trips over the years for family vacations and stuff, and it seems like July is about the worst month to go fish some of the wrecks that we traditionally would catch. Yellowtails and mangroves and all that kind of stuff. Last year we were fishing some stuff and we were catching permit, and these Goliaths were coming up
eating them
in like 80 foot of water.
Yeah,
they were chasing these permit to the surface.
Yep.
I mean,
well, that's
10 feet under the boat, and ended up talking to somebody, and we figured out that they were actually, that's why they were so fired up, or that's where they were.
Well, they wait till you hook the fish because it's injured and it's 100%. An easy meal. That's what happened with our yesterday with our snap. I was throwing some cut bait. We ain't got our fry bait yet, so for snapper you got to cut the chunks just like we do tarpon. And I was cut baiting, and I had these snapper just balled up. I'm like, all right, guys, sweet snapper here. Drop your bait, which I had to go down to 20-pound test with a number 1 hook to get one. Well, we hooked a couple, and then the one we hooked, he's fighting it, and all of a sudden I see this freaking Goliath, and I mean I saw him like he was 10 foot off the 10 foot off.
They're
the
not
surface.
bashful. They'll come right up.
Man, look, this thing, and I was like, oh my, like I seen him, and like I got shocked. It was that big. Like this one, the one that came and ate the snapper was, I'm gonna take a guess, 2+. Like, I mean, because he was as wide as he was long.
Yeah.
I mean, and so he ate the snapper. Then we had him on the little rod because he ate the snapper, and he's just. I don't even think he knew he was hooked.
No, they'll just go right back to the bottom and sit there.
Well, no, he was sitting there, and he's just like moving. I said, here, just hold the spool for a minute.
You're done.
And then I think he figured out that he was hooked, and then he just broke it off. So then I dropped the big rods down. But it's neat, man. We caught one about, I'd say 80 pounds last week. And I tell you what happened is we got into the boat, and I really didn't want to go into behind the gill, because I was trying to grab them to get the hook out.
Yeah.
And I didn't want to lock in, because it's like tarpon. When you lock in up underneath that edge of that gill, you're kind of locked in for the ride. And I'm thinking, man, I don't know, because I ain't caught a bunch of them.
The good thing with them, especially a bigger one, a bigger Goliath, a lot of times once you get them up, they'll sort of, give up on you. Once they come up and blow all that out, they'll sort of just get up there and float. When them little dorsals, are just kind of flopping around.
I don't know about that.
Now, I mean, they'll still give you a little fight.
Where I was going with it,
the bigger ones, I feel like, are a little more docile once you whip them and they come up.
Well, this one was only 80 pounds.
Because
so
they don't just come up to the boat.
Well, I grabbed them, so I kind of grabbed them like you grab a snook. I was trying to get the hook. I had a 7 on. Yeah, and he's got he got little teeth. So I had my gloves on. So I grabbed him. And I'm thinking, and I got my tarpon gloves on, and I'm trying to get this circle hook, and it's in him good. So he got pissed off, bites down on my thumb.
Yeah, they got little teeth.
Well, I wasn't worried about the teeth, but I was kind of surprised at the strength of his jaw.
Oh yeah.
So he's got my hand and I had it on my left hand, and I'm literally about to punch him between the eyes to get my.
Oh gosh.
I didn't know what else to do. He had my hand, and I'm like, I can't get my hand out of his mouth. Like, and my customers.
What I would have loved to have been a fly on the freaking T-top that day.
Because when he clamped down on my thumb, I mean, I couldn't really get it out.
Did you rear back on him?
I was thinking about just squaring him up, like I didn't know what to do. And finally, I thought I cut the line. I said, "The heck with the hook, he's gonna have to eat it." Like, because I could, it was buried in there pretty good.
Yeah.
And after he bit down on my thumb, son, I was the only thing I knew was just punching right between the eyes.
Punch him between the eyes.
I don't know if it would have done anything, but I finally got him loose. But it was fun though, and they're pretty.
What's that gag group they're from? Oh, Jason gave him the old 1-2.
Why is he all cross-eyed? I hit him with a Mike Tyson. I didn't. I swear to you, Travis. Besides beating him with something, I really didn't. And I was down on the gunnel.
Yeah.
When he had my hand, so I couldn't go anywhere. And my customers, like, they're still shocked that they even caught it. Because we caught him on a thready.
Yeah, they're fun, man.
And,
I tell you, you're talking about something coming up and eating. This morning, my guys wanted to go tarpon fishing, so the tide wasn't right for where I was fishing the previous day, and so I said, well, let's go do some snapper grouper stuff, go do some bottom fishing. There's a couple spots that I like fishing at the slack tide because we can fish right on top of it. And so we went off and fished some of that this morning and started catching gags. I mean, pretty consistently. We caught probably 6 or 8 gags in about a half hour or so. They missed a few, got rocked up. Well, all of a sudden, we got over the mark, dropped baits down again the next little area, and guy bows up, gets him off the bottom, and all of a sudden just boom, right? And historically, a lot of gag grouper here, a lot of mediums to small gag grouper, and some good ones. Well, all of a sudden, man, this thing just starts like taking off, like rolling. So I ended up pulling the trolling motor up, and we got on the big motor. I said, man, this thing's gonna spool me. So we went after it, and come to find out, it was about a 9-foot hammerhead that grabbed like a 23-inch gag grouper by the side as we were cranking him up, and just took off with him, and swam probably, man, a solid half mile away from where we were fishing. And I guess he never got the hook, but he was just too stubborn to let go of the fish. And, of course, we're just hanging on. But all of a sudden this grouper comes to the surface, and like a 9-foot hammerhead just swimming in circles. He's like, I ain't done with that,
Well,
so you never know what's going to come up, man. That's the one thing I love about fishing in the bay.
Well, we've been doing, I think both of us have been doing a little more of it. I'm an inshore guy. I love snook fishing. I like red fishing, trout. But this year in particular, I think it's good. I think we're giving our snook a little bit of a break. And it also is a change of pace. It's a little more work on us. Snook in the summertime, for me, roll up, throw your power poles, throw some chum.
I mean, like, it goes, I think it goes hand in hand. The work itself, I think, is
chopping bait up, and it's messy. It's messy, too.
When you say work, as far as the fishing goes, personally, I think it may be a little easier. Like, in terms of, pressure. Picking the right tide, picking the right spot.
I'm saying you doing stuff on the boat.
Chumming. The big pain to me, or the part that probably wears on me the most about bay fishing is, like you said, the mess. When you're going mackerel fishing, when you're going shark fishing, tarpon, grouper, you're getting your boat really dirty.
Yeah.
Now, for most people, on a Saturday, you leave some blood, and you wait till you get home and have a few beers and rinse it off, on Sunday or whatever. For us, 7 o'clock in the morning, I got another group getting on the boat, and they don't want your old blood and guts and mackerel slime all over the boat. So, for me, that's the biggest part of it, or the biggest, I'd say, headache about bay fishing versus, like, the inshore stuff.
It's more work, like cutting the bait.
But the nice thing is like a few days ago, we were struggling a little bit to catch some white bait in the time we had, and so I didn't really worry about it. We caught, a solid live well full of white bait. But then I just loaded a cooler with full of threadies, and
which are plentiful,
was fine. I mean, it worked out better, actually.
I'd say in the last 5 to 6 years, I have a lot more confidence
in cut bait.
On cut bait, like with everything. Like, I was not a cut bait person until probably 5, 6, 7 years ago, and I started using a little bit more, and every year, you get that day.
It's like with anything.
Well, you have a double.
You're confident with it.
Well, you have
10
a double.
minutes isn't like 30 like it is when you're not confident.
Well, you just, we've had them trips where we had a double, and you're getting a ton of threads with some greenbacks. You're going, I don't know if I got enough bait.
Yeah.
And then you end up not even using what you thought you wasn't enough. You don't even use what you had because you use a lot more cut bait. So it's a good option, especially in the summer. It's a change of pace, like you said. You get out there. We caught a 7-foot hammerhead last week. So doing some bay fishing, guys, is a great option this time of year. On an off note, I did want to throw some thanks out there. I finally got my new Pathfinder on the water June 1st, and man, I had to wait for the motor, and it was a little bit on the stressful side just because the way all timing fell in the time of year. But do want to say thanks to obviously Pathfinder. Also want to say thank you to Alify Marine, and for years they've taken. You run Suzuki, so you kind of do your mastery deal, but I want to say 10 years I've been going there. And
Beagle, you know, of course, the way that all works out is just is what it is. But you know, the folks over at Alify Marine, I've known them for years. Beagle.
Yep.
Matter of fact, he's got my Triton up there for sale. Hey,
anybody wants a good boat?
Anybody wants a good boat?
Had a lot of fish
22-foot Triton sitting up at Alify Marine. Talk to Jimmy Beagle. He can get you squared away on that. We get you out for a sea trial test drive. Maybe putting some pictures up here soon. But anyhow, if you are looking for a 22-foot bay boat, my old Triton is sitting up there. You can go check it out.
Good
see
boat.
if it's what you're looking for. It's got a tower.
She needs a little TLC.
TLC, but plenty of luck and fish.
And priced right.
Priced very good. Yeah,
priced
if you're
right.
looking for that good starter boat, something to get you out there, or even a guide boat. It'd be a great guide boat for somebody to go through. You know, and I'm not talking about major stuff. You know, it's the stuff where boat's been sitting for a few months and needs to just be going through. But other than that, you know, anything you need service. Jesse's top-notch Yamaha Mercury guy. You know, Megan over there, on point. You know, get back to you, make sure everything's going good. So yeah, they're a good crew. They take care of us, and I
also, you know, Family Boating, which is competitor, but they're on opposite sides of the city. And Family Boating's treated me well. I go through them with my Pathfinder stuff. I go to Alify with Mercury stuff because them are my sponsoring dealers.
Mm-hmm.
But Family Boating's done a great job. Greg and Brian and the fans over there the clan have done well over there. By the way, guys, this weekend there's a boat show, Florida State Fairgrounds, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. So if you're interested in a boat, or I don't know if they got seminars going. I think it's more boat show versus expo.
I didn't get a call.
The weather's probably going to be nice. I'll be there working the booth for Pathfinder. I think Sunday afternoon or Saturday afternoon, one of them days. I got to look at my schedule's crazy, so I'm not going to be there a bunch, but I will be there. So anyhow, actually it's going to be Saturday afternoon after my trip. I'm going to haul butt over there. Anyhow, if you guys are bored and you don't want to go on the water or going to have the weekend looking for something to do, don't forget to stop into the boat show. Stop over at Family Boat, and if you're interested in a Sportsman or a Pathfinder, it's they'll have some boats on display there, and I'm sure they'll be selling all kinds of goodies for people to buy. So what else we got, Travis?
I'm just reading through some questions here, man. You and I have been sitting here just kind of shooting the breeze, so I wanted to make sure we didn't miss anything. I want to thank everybody for coming in here and hanging out with us like always, man. I know it's a hard time sometimes to get in here and tune in and hang out with us, especially, you know, 6, 7 o'clock. I know y'all got families and hanging out, so we certainly appreciate you joining in with us. We want to make sure that we answer it. Bruno, dude, if we drank beer on the show, this would be like a 4-hour show.
Yeah, either that or 4 minutes. Depends how tired we are. Because I drink a couple beers.
We need a beer sponsor.
We do need a beer sponsor.
We need a beer sponsor.
I think I can get that Stoli vodka hooked up on it, but I don't know about the beer. That'd be a conflict of interest. We might need vodka. That'd give us a little kick. You know, the beer might drag us down.
That'd be an interesting show.
But
yeah, guys, if you've got any other questions, we've got about 8 or 9 minutes here left to go on the show.
Well, you know, one thing we didn't cover, we're talking about Goliath grouper, and it's not common in the Bay. Not a lot of people do it. But if you want to ask rigging, I'm still playing with it. 80 to 100-pound leader at least, depending on the size of them, and then you're still not going to turn them. I'm using a 7/0 Daiichi hook, which is probably a little on the small side, but yeah. I've got it buttoned up every time, though.
You should try the one I gave you.
That thing is a necklace, man. Travis gave me a hook about the size of my hand. He goes, "Hey, why don't you try this?" I'm like, I'm not even sure how to tie a knot around that thing.
It's actually a 16/0.
Is that what size it is?
16/0.
I got some 12s at the house.
It's a 16/0. I mean, you can buy like 12s and 14s, but it's a 16/0. And I had some old 16/0 mustads that I had, and a buddy of mine that hooked me up with the VMC deal sent me some of these because I took him Goliath grouper fishing, and I have never seen a hook like a production hook. You know, they make some custom hooks, but it's a bad to the bone hook, man. And we actually used them offshore last year, and we did some hand lining. Yeah. You know, we didn't have the gear to, you know, the cool thing about the shallow water stuff is, you know, you don't have to worry about a lot of the fight for the most part. I mean, once that fish sort of gives up, they puff
Yeah.
up. You know,
It's
sometimes
like
on the
tug of
bottom,
war.
on the bottom, you just don't have as much leverage. I feel like so it's a little different. So anyhow, you know, we got into hand lining them, which was, you know, not for the sport. Okay, you know, what I mean, not for the fact to say you can't rod and reel one or whatever. I mean, if you're looking to have a good time and do a tackle tester day, if you got that big broomstick rod that you don't think nothing can break, go throw it down there on a Goliath grouper and tell me what you got at the end of the day. But to go hand
we
line
left
them,
with our tail tucked.
to go hand line them, it's a different. You know what I mean? It's a lot of times, you know, you get a buddy or two and you go, all right, man, let's just drop one down. It's just a totally different experience.
I've never done it.
Than rod and reeling one.
See, I'd probably wuss out. I'm like, all right, Travis, you got to take it, man. I'm done.
It's fun.
I do that with tar, but I'm like, let me pop this thing off.
The funniest part about hand lining fish, and you know, you and I were talking about rod and reel, you know, fishing Boca Grande at the dock today. But the neat thing about hand lining fish, and if my cousin Brian's watching, he normally watches the show. He's out in Texas, but 2 summers ago we had him out, and he's a bass fisherman. You know, he's a big boy, old Army boy. And we had him out, me and Josh, offshore down in Boca, and he wanted to hand line one. We had a couple snappers. We had some yellowtail coming up, and they just shut the party down. So like, all right, let's teach this old boy a lesson. So we dropped down the hand line. And my cousin Brian, he's probably, I don't know, 6'3", 250, you know, big boy. So when you hand line the fish, a lot of times the person that's going to fight it isn't the person that's like dropping the bait and kind of getting it set up. So he's kind of, you know, ready, and another person will sort of drop the bait down, and once the fish takes the bait, you sort of, you know, pump them once or twice, make sure the hook's set, and then the slack's coming out of the line, like he's going back, you know, down or whatever. And so you've got this 3 feet of rope. You know, now we're talking rope. This ain't no rod and reel, so we're talking rope. So
it's tug of war,
right?
Straight up.
So you know, so he's sitting back here holding on. And you've got 3 or 4 feet scoped out plus what's down on the bottom, and you're just sort of waiting. Well, when that fish eats, you pump him once or twice and
so he
let
takes
go.
Off. He's got to run and start.
And so you let go, and it's
That's like something you could do with your buddies.
It's like a shock cord, man.
Yeah.
And you want to talk about pinning a cracker to the gunnel. I mean, and the nice thing is with the hand line is you can let go.
Yeah.
You know, if you know what you're doing, be careful. That's another thing. Don't just go out there and start chucking anchor lines.
Let's go ahead and throw our disclaimer out here. Somebody,
don't
wrap it around your hand.
Yeah.
First thing I can tell you to do.
That's the one thing I would say is you know, do be careful, because even a 50, 60-pound Goliath grouper, if you don't know what you're doing and he gets you in the right way, you're going to have your hands full. But it is fun because you can just let go, let the line go out, watch your feet, make sure you clear the line. You know, we put it in a 5-gallon bucket next to us, and then, you know, you take one end of the line and put it to a cleat, coil it up in the bucket, and then that's what you're fishing out of. And you always keep that bucket tucked towards the gunnel to where if you need to let go, you know, you don't get hung up in it. But
Kim,
it's a good time.
I do not do scalloping. Travis does not at
don't.
this point. It's been talks of it, but we catch plenty of fish and stay booked.
I would
summer.
recommend both
Jim
of us.
Lemke.
Jim Lemke or Captain Steve Betts.
I don't know. I don't think Steve does it.
Steve's
anymore.
not going up there no more?
Possibly Steve. Jim for sure.
Jim will know because I think they stay together.
Me and Jason Thompson talked about it, but maybe when I get older.
Yeah.
But I'm actually going on vacation scalloping the second week of July. I cannot wait. But taking the kids, we got a bunch of people going. We got like, I don't know, 15, probably 20 of us going, kids and some friends and stuff. So, but I don't do any charters down there. Like I said, I'd give Jim Lemke a call. He's probably your best bet that I know right off the top. And there might be a couple of guys like
there's a lot of local guys up there, obviously, that probably do a really really good job. But
and they can usually do
Jim's
6, Kim, versus like fishing. I don't offer 6, just because our license is good for 6. But the type of fishing we do, 6 is this doesn't work.
Right.
I mean, occasionally we'll have 6 on the boat, but I tell them only 4 can fish at a time. But with scalloping, it's a numbers thing, man. You get 6 guys out there, get on the boat, do your deal, come back, get your limit, and come in. So that'd be my recommendation. Yes, I've seen Ben Chansey. Actually, I took maybe his uncle on a charter. We were talking. That's like all he does is the a lot.
Ben, he gets
around the
Bumpers.
Bumpers, yeah. And I think it's Fort Myers area, right?
He's Fort Myers, like Boca Grande area.
Yeah.
That was the interesting thing. We were talking about, Goliath grouper is there's kind of two different types. When you get on a reef or, a large piece of structure, that can be a little tougher to target, like drop down and catch a Goliath grouper. But in the bay, it's nice because once you find an area that's got a few of them, they're normally there. Like, they don't necessarily leave.
They're too fat to leave.
Especially if there's a healthy supply of food around for them. But, like, under the Skyway Bridge, some of the range markers in the bay, any kind of port, Port Tampa, downtown or the old Port Tampa over by Gandy, Port Manatee, places like that will hold those fish, and you can sort of go in there and target them if you know what you're doing. But they're certainly fun. Definitely be careful, though. Don't underestimate them.
Guys, if you'd like to do some Goliath fishing in the bay, you can give me a call, 813-727-9890, steadyactionfishingcharters.com, or Travis can take care of you as well. Travis?
Instinct Fishing Company. Website is www.fishbyinstinct.com, or you can always give me a call on my cell phone. Call or text 813-830-3474.
And if you guys would like to get out, do some bay fishing, give you an idea on the last minute here what we're catching. Our in-bay tarpon fishing should pick up. Hopefully it gets better. Mango snapper is going to be the highlight for July. We're starting to hit some of these Goliath grouper. We're getting some gag grouper in the bay. Our snook fishing will remain hot through the summer, and we're hoping that we start. Somebody's saying, where's all the reds at? I don't know, man. This is by far the worst year that I've seen for redfish. I mean, schools are non-existent.
We've been picking a few fish off inshore, like
where
we go,
schools,
but no, yeah. As a whole, it's just down.
Yeah. So
and to highlight that, I'm not targeting them. So I'm really not going to look for them. I'm really not even messing with them.
But I tell people straight up, I'm like, if you want to go catch a couple reds, we're gonna have to beat the bushes and work really hard. We've been catching a few here and there, but the schools, I don't know, man.
We're not harvesting redfish right now, so for me, unless it's just the thrill of the hunt, the thrill to go catch a redfish or something like that, we'll do it. But, as I've said over the last few weeks, I mean, my focus is bay fishing, man. I really just enjoy it. It's a lot of action. Folks have a good time, catch some good fish, give the inshore fish a little bit of a break, Now, the weather and certain circumstances or certain requests, I'm doing some inshore trips, but especially from now going into the end of July, it's a bay fishing thing for me.
So, again, if you want to get a hold of us, do some fishing. We do make our living on the water, 813-727-9890. Business website, www.steadyactionfishingcharters.com.
Myself, Captain Travis, www.fishbyinstinct.com. Or my cell phone, 813-830-3474.
Guys, we appreciate you watching and tuning in. And until next week, tight lines and catch them up.
Yes, sir. We'll see y'all next week, man. Thank you.